Malaysia and Kosovo elevate ties with visa exemption arrangements. Malaysia and Philippines agree on need for non-discriminatory aid to Myanmar. Hello, good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. My name is Darryl Baptist and you're watching World Today. Malaysia and Kosovo are on the right track to elevate bilateral ties after agreeing to implement visa exemption arrangements between the two countries. Kosovo President Dr. Vjosa Osmani Sadriu said the decision would also further enhance trade, education and tourism sectors of both nations.
So in Kosovo, for Malaysian people of Malaysia who travel to Kosovo, they can travel without restrictions for up to 90 days. In Malaysia now we can travel for up to 30 days. So we need to make sure that we continue to work together so that we can make that even easier.
She also expressed appreciation for Malaysia's decision to lift visa requirements for Kosovo citizens, describing it as an act of trust and friendship that would further enhance people-to-people connections. President Dr. Vjosa also thanked Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and Malaysia for its continued backing for Kosovo's efforts to join international organizations. Malaysia was one of the first Asian nations to recognize Kosovo on the 30th of October 2008, with formal diplomatic relations established on the 18th of March 2011. Malaysia and the Philippines share the stance that all humanitarian assistance to Myanmar must be delivered without discrimination or restrictions. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said this was agreed upon during a telephone conversation with Philippine President Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr. Datuk Seri Anwar said during the conversation with President Marcos, he also conveyed Malaysia's wish and call for the ceasefire in Myanmar to be extended to ensure humanitarian aid can continue to be channeled to affected populations. Regarding tariff issues, Datuk Seri Anwar, who is also Finance Minister, said he informed that Malaysia could leverage its position as ASEAN chair to demonstrate its importance to the United States in global tariff negotiations. In a Facebook post, he said the US decision to postpone tariff implementation for 90 days currently provides relief to allow further discussions on related matters, considering Malaysia's strengths in certain products. The Prime Minister said before ending the call, he also wished President Marcos well in facing the Philippine general election on the 12th of May, while expressing hope to meet the leader at the ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur soon. According to an international non-governmental group, Freedom Flotilla Coalition, a civilian ship carrying humanitarian aid to Gaza was struck in a drone attack early Friday while sailing in international waters near Malta. The coalition said in a statement at 12:23 a.m. Maltese time, a Freedom Flotilla ship was subjected to a drone attack, which resulted in a fire and a breach in the hull. Aerial video released by Sea-Watch showed the Conscience vessel was still at sea hours after the drone attack, with black patches on its bow. It added that the ship remains in international waters near Malta and had issued an SOS distress signal. The Israeli Foreign Ministry did not respond to a request for comment on the allegation by the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. The Maltese government said the vessel and its crew were secured in the early hours of the morning after a nearby tug assisted with firefighting operations. Turkey's foreign ministry said Turkish nationals were on board at the time of the incident, and it was working with Maltese authorities to transfer them to a safe location. The Maltese government said in a statement on Friday, everyone aboard an aid flotilla for Gaza that was hit by drones in international waters off Malta overnight are confirmed safe. Images released by the government of Malta on Friday showed a tug vessel putting out a fire on the Gaza Freedom Flotilla vessel, Conscience, following the drone attack. By 1:28 a.m. local time, the fire was reported under control. The statement also mentioned the vessel had 12 crew members on board and 4 civilian passengers. No casualties were reported. An Armed Forces of Malta patrol vessel was also dispatched to provide further assistance. The coalition is campaigning to end Israel's blockade of Gaza, which is also facing mounting international condemnation. Up next, polls open in Australian vote swayed by inflation and Trump. But before the Australians, millions of Singaporeans are heading to the polls today as the country votes in its 14th general election. This would be the first major test for Prime Minister Lawrence Wong against a rejuvenated opposition in uncertain economic times for the trade-centred nation. Polls opened at 8 a.m. for 12 hours of voting, with some results expected to stream in around midnight. A total of 206 candidates from 11 parties, including 2 independents, are vying for 92 seats across 32 constituencies. About 2.75 million people are eligible to cast their ballots this year, an increase of more than 100,000 electors from the 2.65 million in the last contest. Wong's ruling People's Action Party, also known as PAP, which has steered the island to prosperity while using an iron hand to suppress dissent, is expected to easily retain a clear majority in Parliament. Key voter concerns include housing, the economy, and the rising cost of living. Popular after leading Singapore's COVID task force, Wong took over last year from his predecessor, Lee Hsien Loong, the son of founding Premier Lee Kuan Yew, who ruled the island state after its bitter breakup with Malaysia in 1965. Wong has reiterated he needed a strong mandate to navigate heavily trade-reliant Singapore through economic uncertainty in light of tariffs levied by US President Donald Trump. Australians began voting today in a bitterly contested general election, deciding a contest shaped by living costs, climate anxiety, and US President Donald Trump's tariffs. From dusty desert towns to sun-splashed harbour cities, millions of Australians are choosing between left-leaning incumbent Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Conservative challenger Peter Dutton. The almost universal consensus across a slew of opinion polls leading up to the election day was that Albanese's governing Labour Party would win a second term. The first polls opened at 8 a.m. local time on Australia's east coast, followed by the country's western cities and far-flung island territories. The election authority said a total of 18.1 million voters have enrolled for the election, adding that more than a third of them have cast an early ballot. Voting is compulsory, enforced with fines of $20 Australian, leading to turnouts that top 90%. A result could come as soon as tonight unless the vote is very tight. Albanese, 62, has promised to embrace renewable energy, tackling a worsening housing crisis and pour money into a creaking healthcare system. Liberal Party leader and former police officer Dutton, 54, wants to slash immigration, crack down on crime and ditch a long-standing ban on nuclear power. Some polls show Dutton leaking support because of US President Trump, who he praised this year as a big thinker with gravitas on the global stage. A fourth round of Iran-US talks over Tehran's nuclear program has been postponed. Iran said the two countries, along with facilitators Oman, had jointly decided to postpone Saturday's meeting in Rome for logistical and technical reasons. The US said the timing of the talks had not been confirmed in the first place. It came as US President Donald Trump threatened action against those buying Iranian oil or petrochemicals on Thursday, after Washington introduced fresh sanctions this week on companies it said had links to Tehran. Trump pulled the US out of a previous nuclear agreement between Iran and 5 other world powers in 2018 and has long said he would make a better deal. He has previously warned of military action if these new talks, which began in April, do not succeed. Both sides described the first round of talks in Oman's capital, Muscat, as constructive. Iran's Foreign Minister, Syed Abbas Araghchi, announced that Tehran's determination to secure a negotiated solution had not changed. However, a US State Department spokesperson said Saturday's meeting had not been confirmed and that it expected the next round to take place in the near future. Oman's Foreign Minister said a new date would be set when agreed by all sides. The announcement is unlikely to mean that the talks have broken down, with both sides eager to avoid war. The US government has reached a settlement with the family of Ashley Babbitt, a supporter of President Donald Trump, who was shot and killed by a police officer during the January 6, 2021 attack on the US Capitol.
This security video shows Ashley Babbitt.
Attorneys for both the Justice Department and Babbitt's estate said during a court hearing on Friday that they had reached an agreement in principle to resolve the case, but no specifics were disclosed. A US government settlement would mark the latest gesture of support from Trump's administration towards those who stormed the Capitol in 2021 in a failed bid to block Congress from certifying Trump's 2020 election loss. More than 1,500 people were criminally charged for participating in the riot. Trump pardoned nearly all of them and released those who had been imprisoned. The Justice Department has moved to replace Trump as a defendant in lawsuits he faces over the violence at the Capitol. Babbitt's estate, through her husband Aaron, filed a $35 million wrongful death lawsuit last year in a Washington federal court, alleging the officer who shot and killed her acted negligently. An internal investigation by the US Capitol Police cleared the officer of wrongdoing in 2021 and said he would not face internal discipline. A small plane that had been missing for 48 hours was found in the Amazonas region of Bolivia on Friday, with all 5 occupants safe. According to local authorities, rescuers located the aircraft in central Bolivia in the Beni region and transported the survivors, including the pilot, 3 adults and a child, by helicopter to the city of Trinidad for medical evaluation. It is specified that the evacuation of survivors was complicated by the impassability of the area. According to a Bolivian media outlet, the pilot reported that an engine failure led to an emergency landing near the Itanomas River, where they endured harsh conditions without food or water until fishermen found them. The plane had gone missing during a flight from Baures to Trinidad. The loss of the passenger plane was reported on the 1st of May. The aircraft disappeared from radar in the Beni department, which is located in the center of the Amazon. The search operation was conducted with the participation of the Bolivian Air Force, also known as FAB, the Joint Emergency Response Command, and the Search and Rescue Service. A strong offshore earthquake caused a tsunami scare in the far south of Chile and Argentina on Friday, with authorities evacuating residents of coastal areas for hours before scaling back the threat level. Thousands of people made their way to higher ground after the earthquake struck in the Drake Passage between Cape Horn and on the southern tip of South America and Antarctica at a shallow depth of just 10 kilometers. The U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, put the magnitude at 7.4, slightly below the 7.5 reported by Chile's National Seismological Center. It struck at 9:58 a.m. local time, and several smaller aftershocks were also recorded, but there were no reports of injuries or material damage. The epicenter was 219 kilometers from the city of Ushuaia in Argentina and a similar distance from the Chilean town of Puerto Williams. The tsunami warning was issued for Chile's remote Magallanes region and the Chilean Antarctic Territory, with precautionary measures also taken in Argentina's Tierra del Fuego region. Residents in affected areas were advised to act calmly and follow the instructions of the authorities. Chile is often affected by earthquakes, with 3 tectonic plates converging within its territory. Skype will ring for the last time on Monday as owners Microsoft retires the 2-decade-old internet calling service that redefined how people connect across borders. Shutting down Skype will help Microsoft focus on its homegrown Teams service by simplifying its communication offerings, the software giant said in February. Founded in 2003, Skype's audio and video calls quickly disrupted the landline industry in the early 2000s and made the company a household name, boasting hundreds of millions of users at its peak. However, the platform has struggled to keep up with easier-to-use and more reliable rivals such as Zoom and Salesforce Slack in recent years. The decline was partly because Skype's underlying technology was not suited for the smartphone era. When the pandemic and work from home fueled the need for online business calls, Microsoft batted for Teams by aggressively integrating it with other Office apps to tap corporate users, once a major base for Skype. With that, Skype will become the latest in a series of high-flying bets that Microsoft has mishandled, such as the Internet Explorer web browser and its Windows Phone. Microsoft declined to share the latest user figures for Skype and said there would be no job cuts due to the move. Coming up, China ends Malaysia's Sudirman Cup run with 3-0 quarter-finals rout. The national badminton squad's dream of at least reaching the semi-finals for the 3rd consecutive time in the 2025 Sudirman Cup competition was shattered by world champions China after they lost 3-0 in the quarter-finals held at the Fenghuang Gymnasium, Xiamen, China, yesterday. It all started with the mixed doubles match when the home team, Feng Yanji and Huang Dongpin, played a neat and energetic performance to defeat the national pair Chen Tangji and To Yi-wei 21-17 and 21-17 in 49 minutes. Later, Shi Yu-ki, as the leading Chinese men's single player, continued to add to the suffering when Leong Junhao failed to match his opponent's strength and succumbed 6-21 in the first set. Junhao tried to come back by tying the score at 12-12 in the second set, but Yuki remained calm and launched a solid attack to end the set with a 21-14 victory, thus earning the second point for China. National women's singles player Kaylet Shana, who was entrusted with the third match, faced a tough task against Tokyo 2020 Olympic champion Chen Yufei, losing in 8-21, 7-21 in 32 minutes. The defeat saw Malaysia's campaign come to an end in the quarter-finals, thus ending the dream of repeating the bronze medal achievements in Vanta 2021 and Suzhou 2023. Over in the world of football, Al Ahly winger Riyad Mahrez has called on his teammates to avoid complacency as the Saudi Pro League side look to win the Asian Champions League elite title for the first time tomorrow with victory over Japan's Kawasaki Frontale. The Jeddah-based club, who have the advantage of playing the final in front of their own fans at the King Abdullah Sports City Stadium, will be making a third attempt to lift the trophy after final defeats in 1986 and 2012. But while a squad boasting high-profile signings such as Mahrez, Roberto Firmino, Ivan Toney and Frank Kessie will go into the deciders as favourites, the Algeria winger emphasised the need to embrace the opportunity provided by the occasion. Mahrez, 34, is no stranger to success, having been part of the Manchester City side that won the treble of UEFA Champions League, Premier League and FA Cup in 2023, as well as 4 other English League titles, including with Leicester City in 2016. He was also a key part of Algeria's Africa Cup of Nations success in 2019, but is looking to claim his first silverware since switching to Al Ahly from City last year. Saudi Pro League team Al Hilal parted ways with Portuguese coach Jorge Jesus. The club announced on Friday. The move comes after Al Hilal were eliminated from the Asian Champions League elite semi-finals after a 3-1 defeat to fellow Saudi side Al Ahly on Tuesday. Al Hilal said in a statement on X, the board has decided to appoint the coach Mohammed Al Shaloub to lead the first team. With 5 games remaining in the Saudi Pro League, Al Hilal sit second in the table, 6 points behind leaders Al Ittihad. They are set to play in the newly expanded Club World Cup in the United States in June and July. Jesus led Al Hilal to the 2023-2024 league title and during 2 stints at the club also won 3 Super Cups in 2018, 2023 and 2024, as well as the King Cup 2023-2024. Jesus is reportedly among the shortlist to take over as Brazil coach, with Real Madrid boss Carlo Ancelotti also in the running. We now go to tennis, where Casper Ruud marched into his first Madrid Open final without dropping a set after the Norwegian beat Francisco Cerundolo 6-4, 7-5 in Friday's semi-final, despite struggling with a rib injury before the match. Ruud received treatment on his rib 3 games into the match at the Caja Magica Center Court. Ruud, who ousted Taylor Fritz and Daniil Medvedev in the previous rounds, needed treatment 3 games into the opening set, while he managed to stave off 15 of the 18 break points he faced to move into his 3rd Masters 1000 final. He will face a red-hot Jack Draper in the final. Currently ranked world number 15, Ruud is set to break into the top 10 once again, and Sunday will be Ruud's 18th final on clay, with only Novak Djokovic among the active players who have reached more finals on the surface. In the other semi-final, 5th seed Draper of Great Britain booked his spot in the Madrid Open final with a hard-fought 6-3, 7-6 victory against Lorenzo Musetti. Draper's 2 breaks of serve to Musetti's 1 swayed a high-quality first set in Draper's favour, with the Briton squandering 2 set points before converting a 3rd. Draper downed his Italian opponent, who was seeded 10th, 6-3, 7-6, to reach a 3rd final of 2025 and a 2nd at the ATP Masters 1000 level, where he won at Indian Wells in March. Draper is 1 win away from claiming a 2nd Masters 1000 title in 2 months after reaching the final of the Madrid Open. He will take on Casper Ruud in Sunday's final after the Norwegian beat Francisco Cerundolo 6-4, 7-5 despite struggling with a rib injury before the match. Up next, Japan's Nintendo fans test Switch 2, wary of possible tariff price hike. FIFA has launched a brand new mobile game, FIFA Rivals, transforming soccer icons like Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar and Mbappe into superheroes with spectacular moves. Eschewing the realism that defined its former saga for years, this title embraces a vibrant, cartoon-style visual experience. Players boast exaggerated torsos, elongated legs and special powers, leaving fiery trails or bursts of light when they touch the ball. The game's development is spearheaded by Bacon Games, a Colombian studio based in Bogota, in partnership with the American company Mythical Games. Juan Duque, one of the game's animators, states that the core idea was to blend the best of both worlds, real-life players and tournaments with acrobatic feats reminiscent of comic books or action movies.
Es un fútbol estilizado, tanto visualmente como la mecánica de juego y como los movimientos y todo eso. Entonces los jugadores son un poquito más caricaturescos que en la vida real, pero no tanto como para que sea un cartoon.
This new venture follows the 2022 split between FIFA and EA Sports, ending a historic agreement. For nearly 3 decades, their alliance dominated the market, with the FIFA franchise selling over 235 million copies and generating at least $20 billion. Nintendo fans were given a chance to try out the company's new Switch 2 gaming device at an event near Tokyo over the week, ahead of a release that some worry could be overshadowed by US tariffs driving up prices. Gamers at the pre-launch event began lining up outside the Makuhari Messi Convention Center near Tokyo from mid-morning to play Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza and other titles on the Switch 2. Despite the possibility of higher prices, there are early indicators of robust consumer demand for the successor to the Switch, which has sold more than 150 million units since 2017 and transformed Nintendo's fortunes. The Kyoto-based gaming company said on Wednesday it had received 2.2 million applications in the lottery for Switch 2 in Japan and could not fulfill all the demand.
マリオカートとか新しいソフトもありつつも、なんかカービィとかはこうスイッチ、今までのスイッチで出てたものの追加コンテンツみたいな形なので、また新しいソフトもどんどん出るといいなと思いました。
Nintendo is holding hands-on events around the world, including in New York, Berlin and Hong Kong. The Switch 2 will sell for $350 for a Japanese language-only version in the United States. Nintendo initially paused pre-orders due to tariff concerns, but later said it would maintain pricing at $449.99. And that concludes today's edition of World Today. In our top story, Malaysia and Kosovo elevate ties with visa exemption agreements. Till then, my name is Daryl Baptist. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I trust you're all having a memorable weekend. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Have a good day. Bye.